Yeah.
Oh, the meeting will be recorded. Yeah.
Yes. So.
Do I have to reply that we can continue? The computer is asking me. Should I agree?
I think yes. You.
Okay.
I think,
then I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Welcome everyone who's here.
Hello, Professor Anwar and Professor Reid.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Dr. Hayek, Dr. Reid, everybody.
I suggest we wait a little bit. We are 14 people now. I don't know if we are expecting more, but possibly we give people another 4 or 5 minutes to
No problem.
Join in with us today. Yeah. Mr. Felix is sending his regards. He had a bicycle accident today, so he can't be with us. So, yeah. So, yeah.
So this is really a very unlucky thing because we are talking about sustainability, and Felix Sänger is using the bike instead of the car, and it's really a paradigm of a good behavior, CO2 neutral, and then happens this.
They should provide airbags to the bicycles.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important principles of sustainable city. Use the bike.
Yeah, but this is a problem, especially of the city of Dortmund, because I know from my wife, she also uses regularly the bike. When she moves to Münster University, she takes 7 kilometers through the city of Dortmund, and then she continues the trek by the train. But it is always a problem in the city of Dortmund because there are so many car drivers not taking care for bikers and so on. So this is a kind of culture. While in the city of Münster, this is more accustomed to biking since decades, and so the car drivers are driving more carefully. And those events are not, if you take into account the number of bikers, not to this extent like in Dortmund or other cities where the car drivers are not so accustomed and familiar with bikers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, how do we feel about starting? Anyone missing, accepting anyone? Expecting anyone to show up today?
We are waiting for Dr. Fauzi, and he showed up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So then it is my privilege to give
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Dr. Fauzi.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yeah. Then it's my privilege to give a warm welcome and say hello to everyone. Thank you for coming in and joining us today and meeting us as a RESI project group. For everyone who's new here today, especially welcome to you. Who are we? We are exciting and highly motivated people from 3 universities, TU Dortmund University in Germany, Graz University in Austria, and Mosul University in Iraq. And we came together now, I think almost 6 years ago, in forming a scientific partnership in thinking and being exciting about what to learn from intercultural exchange and promoting the idea of science and interdisciplinary work across different countries. And one of our activities we are doing this year is that when we thought about what to do and what to dedicate our partnership to, was that we thought the sustainability goals as decided on by United Nations. This is an exciting global frame for all of us to orientate our professional practice to, and that we would like to dedicate this year for all of us to educating ourselves a little bit more in understanding what these goals on sustainability are meaning for us in the different contexts we are working and living with, and exchanging concepts and ideas across our different universities. And one of the way we thought on how to engage on these goals and topics was that we thought we should not just talk about these things scientifically, but maybe also being a little bit more creative and using art as a mode of expression could be a nice way for all of us to find ways and how we could identify a little bit better and more with what certain challenges in light of the sustainability goals are meaning for us in the different contexts, and influence each other, the thinking of each other. And so we thought we would like to dedicate each month of this year to one special sustainability goal, come together, learn about us, get some scientific input on what these sustainability goals possibly mean in the view of different experts we have in our communities, and invite everyone, especially students, on the basis of that to get creative. So we would like to invite you to share your views on reflecting on the different goals, and what are you thinking in your perspective? Are there burning issues in your communities where you are living? How do you experience certain problems in your own communities? And what are your ideas and visions in the light of these sustainability goals? So, and everyone is free and invited to share with us and get creative in that regard. 1 month, one goal, and we would be very excited to see how these topics and the sustainability goal inspire you. And what is special about this, your artwork will be shown on our website, also in our Instagram account, but also we'll make a big joint exhibition at Mosul University Student Center. And we will also exhibit some of your artwork in the city center of Graz as part of a big public summer event. So your art and your creative work will travel, and you are all invited to join us. Last month, our topic was dedicated to the Sustainability Goal 16, which is about peace, justice, and strong institutions. And we had Gerd Oberleitner, who's a professor at Graz University and who holds the UNESCO chair on human rights at Graz University, with us, and he shared with us different ideas and perspectives and what the Sustainability Development Goal 16 could possibly mean. And today we are very excited because we have Professor Grün with us today to introduce to us the new topic of the month. But before I will introduce Professor Grün and tell you what the exciting topic of the next month is, I think I'll give to Professor Anwar to also welcome everyone, and maybe you could summarize what I've said, also to make sure everyone will also be on track for those who are who prefer Arabic languages.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again. It is very, very pleasant to have you here and to meet with friends and colleagues. Actually, we are, for the first time, as for me, as for the university in Iraq, any university, we are acting side by side with the world. I mean, the Sustainable Development Goals. This is goals adopted by United Nations for the year 2030. They are looking for the year 2030 to have less poverty, more justice, lots of things, affordable housing. We are acting as a residents of this planet. We have to do in the same way the others are doing or looking. So this acting, these goals, very important. But what we can do, it's the simplest way is to express our thoughts, our idea, how we can express peace, how we can reject violence against children. So we are looking for your contributions. We are looking. We need help from all of the rest of the people and the whole students in the university here in Mosul and every university in the governorate of Nineveh in Iraq. And this is the first time in Iraq I ever heard that we are people and students express their thoughts for these sustainable development goals. And in this way, we are spreading the knowledge of the humans, how we are looking. We need to stick together and to reach for more peaceful, for more very good economics and a very good life for all the rest of the world. We need to think, to care for others, not only for us. So we need everybody to act and to be in this acting. And our festival, our Creating Festival, is one of the greatest way to express the thoughts of the students. And now I will explain a little bit in Arabic. الأهداف اللي حددتها الأمم المتحدة هي 17 هدف تقريبا، نعم بالضبط 17 هدف للحصول على تطور للحفاظ على البيئة، لتحقيق السلام، لنبذ العنف، للحفاظ على المياه، عدة أهداف وهي موجودة. هذه الأهداف لكل العالم، علينا كلنا أن نلتزم بها، أن نوسعها، أن نعلنها لكل أنحاء العالم، لكل الناس، أنه هدفنا للعام 2030 أنه هذا العام أنه نحقق بينه أكبر قدر ممكن من السلام بين الدول، بين الشعوب. شعوب تريد تعيش، شعوب تريد أنه تحافظ على المياه، أنه اقتصاد قوي، أنه صحة جيدة، نبذ العنف ضد الأطفال، ضد النساء أيضا، تطور المدن، الحق في أنه لكل شخص له بيت، الحق في أنه له يعني خدمة صحية. بهذه الثقافة لما ننشرها، حفاظ على البيئة، طبعا حفاظ على البيئة يساهم في زيادة في صحة الإنسان والمجتمع. هذه إذا ننشرها احتمالية كبيرة جدا أنه نصل عام 2030، وإن لم نصلها نحن فأولادنا وربما أحفادنا أيضا يقع علينا واجب أنه نحافظ عليهم وأنه نحط هذه الخطط. الطريقة اللي اقترحناها كلجنة أنه طريقة مهرجان للإبداع. هذا المهرجان الطلاب من كل جامعات نينوى وحتى من جامعة دهوك ممكن أين يساهموا بوضع رسومات تعبيرية، ربما فيديوية، بأي وسيلة يعطيك يعبر عن الهدف المخصص لكل شهر. كل شهر عندنا هدف محدد. الطالب ممكن يشارك، ممكن يرسم لنا رسم يعبر عن سلام، عن المدينة المتطورة، عن الحفاظ على المياه، عن عدة نقاط. وبذلك نكون نساهم مع المجتمع الدولي ومع كل دول العالم في تحقيق هذا الهدف. أرجو أن أكون وضحت باللغة العربية للي يحب أنه يعني يستوضح أكثر، وأكو مواقع اللي تتحدث عن باختصار SDG اللي هي Sustainable Development Goals. وأشكركم and thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Haik. Now we are looking for the next.
شكرا دكتور. شكرا دكتور.
عفوا.
So today we are getting together because it is about the new month has started, May has started, and today's jobs is for us to introduce to everyone what's the topic of the month, which is the Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which is about sustainable cities and communities. And we thought, who could be a better expert than to share some wisdom and enlighten us what this Sustainability Development Goal is about than Professor Grün from Dortmund University, who is there at the Faculty of Spatial Planning, holding the chair for landscape ecology and landscape planning. And in that is an expert, is really an expert on what sustainable city development could mean. And possibly when he read through the different targets of the sustainability goals, his head expands, and there's a lot of ideas on what that could mean in different contexts. So we are very happy to have you here with us today. And many of you know Professor Grün very well because he's the project head and coordinator of our cooperation at TU Dortmund University. And we are always very grateful and happy for his support. So thank you very much for being with us today. And the floor is yours.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Haik.
Thank you so much, Professor Haik. And it is really a pleasure for me to be introduced by you with such friendly words, but I have to again repeat some things which I repeat. This project was one of your ideas, and I'm very pretty that I could be your successor here with this project in TU Dortmund University. And unfortunately, Paul Felix Sanger, who was scheduled for today to be involved, has an accident and therefore cannot participate. But I'm also very happy indeed to talk about the Sustainability Development Goal of the month May, because May is the month of my birthday, and this is a green topic, sustainability in cities and communities. And in fact, I deal a lot of time with this topic. So I very much would like to welcome all of you esteemed colleagues, dear students and dear guests. And I would like, you have prepared all the slides, that's very good, thank you. As one of the leaders of the DAD project, Rethink Science and Education in Iraq, now carried out for more than 5 years, I'm really pleased to welcome all of you and to greet you on today's events. So our Creativity Festival, as you may know, is meant to encourage all of us as university students and teachers to reflect on the meaning of one of the United Nations Sustainability Goals each month and to submit some artwork in resemblance of your ideas. As you may know, as a professor of landscape ecology and landscape planning at the Faculty of Spatial Planning, aspects of sustainability, especially in cities and communities, is one of my central fields of scientific interest. and therefore I'm delighted to introduce the topic of this month to you, the building sustainability of cities and communities. If you could please continue, or is it, yeah, thank you so much. So there were some topics which were taken from the convention. It is strictly or strongly connected with sustainable city and community development. The first topic is adequate, safe, and affordable housing. And I indeed, like Professor Wendt assumed, I thought a bit about, yeah, what could this mean on the background of some experience I collected in the last decades in about 70 countries of this globe. So you see the most countries I have never visited. We have 210 countries in the world, and I only visited 70 of this, but still I'm more interested in focusing deeper in some countries than to have seen everything only roughly. There is some very interesting insight. I will talk about this in a few minutes. The next very interesting topic for many countries, especially also Germany and in Europe, but I think also in the long term, I've seen many cities in Asia or in the United States where you can really see when you observe the traffic or the public transport or the missing public transport, then the private transport, then you can really see this is a big topic. And also to achieve other goals, which can be defined as climate protection goals, or so partly under the sustainability development goals, but also the climate conventions are separated, so there are separate documents, and therefore they have an own political importance. Another interesting point, which is very often not so much considered in the relation to city and community development, is to save world's natural and cultural heritage. And very often, even natural heritage is seen as a kind of thing which could not be a part of urban areas of city development. So many researchers, many politicians, they think this is just the opposite. Nature on the one hand side and urban areas or cities on the other hand side. But I think this is a kind of fairy tale. And I will also give some information about this, why I think this is a fairy tale and not true, because there are many positive examples on the side or under the areas of city development, which give evidence that natural or ecological principles have been considered in urban development on the one hand side, and on the other hand side, we have also very bad examples of rural development far away from the agglomeration, where natural or ecological aspects have not been taken into account. So this is another interesting point I will focus on. And finally, one aspect which is very dear to my heart is the access to green and public spaces for everyone. This is especially a topic which has been or which has become very important in the Corona times here in Germany, because we have seen that there are some cities who are very well equipped with green space, and therefore green space could serve the population as a kind of area where they could just go out and could leave the quarantine and so on. So this is a kind of free space for many people. But we have also example that cities who are not providing public spaces or green spaces as they should, so where the green spaces are very rare, there is a lack of green spaces for a huge part of the population. And what happened in Corona times, because the administration was so afraid that the people could infect each other when there are too many people in these very rare green spaces, they closed the green space. And that meant that many people, mostly the poorer people in densely populated urban areas, they did not have access to green spaces anymore at all. So this is a very severe thing. We should also learn from such epidemic events like the Corona crisis for the urban development in future, that it can really be regarded as a sustainable development. So next slide, please.
I was just wondering if, I don't know, possibly Mr. Reit or someone would want to step in and help.
Yeah, please.
Translation,
if this is necessary.
Making sure everyone sort of has an idea what we are talking about.
Thank you so much. Yeah, please.
Okay. In the beginning, I'm very glad to see Dr. Grom with us in this event. السلام عليكم الحضور. راح اتحدث على ما
عليكم السلام.
ما طرحه دكتور جرون في السلايد الاول. طبعا من البدايه هو كان يعني كان كل السعيد منه يحضر معنا هذا الحدث اللي هو انطلاق الفعاليه الابداعيه، الجزء الثاني من الفعاليه الابداعيه في التعامل مع التعامل مع البرنسبل اوف اللي العناصر اللي حددتها الامم المتحده في التعامل مع السستينابيلتي، واللي كانت بدايه كانت عندنا الفعاليه الاولى كانت متعلقه بالامان والعداله، والفعاليه اللي احنا بصددها هي السستينابل سيتي، المدن المستدامه والمجتمعات المستدامه. بدايه كان كل السعيد انه كانت هي في شهر ايار، لانه شهر ايار هو البيرث داي مالت مولده، فكانت هذا التزامن كان كلش مهم. شجع الطلاب والاساتذه على التعامل مع العناصر التي تؤدي الى استدامه المدن، وخاصه بالمجتمعات اللي احنا عايشين بها، ونحن عايشين في مجتمع الجامعه، واللي هو يعتبر فد نموذج من الممكن المدينه تحتذي بينه وتطبقه على مستوى القطاعات الاخرى مالتها، فيما لو نحن طبقنا جزء من عناصر الاستدامه المدن المستدامه في البيئه الجامعيه اللي نحن عايشين بها. السلايد الاول يتحدث على الاسكان الميسور، واحد من اهم الاعتبارات في الاستدامه للمدن هو توفير الاسكان الميسور، الافوردبل هاوسنج، وهذا كان كلش مهم في انه اذا كانت نحتاج ان المدينه تكون مدينه مستدامه انه نحن نوفر الاسكان لاغلب شرائح المجتمع. ايضا بنفس الوقت تزامن مع هذا توفير الاسكان الميسور هو الافوردبل اكسسبل بابليك ترانسبورت، ودعوه الى العوده الى استخدام النقل العام، واللي نحن نفتقده بصراحه في مدينتنا بشكل كلش كبير، قد يكون موجود لكن بشكل غير منظم، ونشوف يمكن المشاكل اللي تحصل من عدم وجود تنظيم لهذا النقل العام، وهذا طبعا كلش مؤثر مثل ما قال الدكتور روم. هذا طبعا راح يكون انعكاساته على المناخ اللي نحن عايشين بينه بسبب التلوث اللي قد يحصل بسبب كثره عدد السيارات. يمكن حكى الدكتور روم بالبدايه انه على واحده من العناصر الاساسيه، طبعا قبل ما بدينا بالايفنت حكى على انه مستر فيليكس كان عمل حادث بالبايكس مالته، وكان هذا يعني كان مؤشر انه ما يكون عندنا، يعني هذا كان مؤشر سيء لنا، لان حتى نروح الى ندخل الى مدن مستدامه اذا يجب ان نقلل استخدام السيارات المنفرده، نروح باتجاه الترانسبورت الببليك ترانسبورت، او نستخدم الادوات النقل اللي لا تؤثر على البيئه وتعمل تلوث بالبيئه، واللي واحده منها هي الدراجات الهوائيه. وحكى على طبعا مثال انه زوجته ايضا تستخدم الدراجات الهوائيه في التنقل في دورتموند. دورتموند من المدن اللي ايضا عدد السيارات اللي تستخدم بها كلش كبير، فما تكون مرتاحه في عمليه التنقل، على العكس من مدينه مünster في ايضا في المانيا، اللي هي اغلب الاشخاص يستخدمون الدراجات الهوائيه بالتنقل، فحتى يطلقون عليها مدينه الدراجات الهوائيه في المانيا. ايضا حكى على النقطه الاخرى اللي هي saving the world national and cultural heritage. هو واحده من النقاط المهمه في استدامه المدن هو الحفاظ على الطبيعه والابنيه التراثيه اللي موجوده في المدينه، واللي هي تعتبر الايدنتيتي للمدينه، فعمليه الحفاظ عليها هو جزء وبرنسبلز جدا عمليه الاستدامه أخيرا النقطة الأخيرة هي الأكسس.
Ms. Dr. Reit, I apologize. I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I think your connection is very bad. Hearing you.
جدا يكون عندنا واقعة في دنيا جميلة جدا هي الاريا close the
It seems we lost the connection with.
Yeah. So I think I will give over to Professor Grüning.
شكرا أستاذ، شكرا.
Yeah. And I will switch off everyone else's camera to support with.
Yes, Dr. I can return back. I have the. Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I have unstable. I have unstable sign.
Yeah.
The last point, النقطة الأخيرة يعني أنا حبيت وهي أذكرها كلش جميلة، حكاها قال يجب أن نلبس مناطقنا بالوشاح الأخضر، وهي مهمة جدا في الزمن اللي احنا عايشينه اللي هي زمن الجائحة، لأن كان أثرت على نفسية الساكنين في المناطق في البيلدينج. فوجود المناطق الخضراء هي متنفس كلش كبير في عملية التعامل مع الباردايناميك او الجائحه اللي يعني لا سمح الله ان تكون مستمره، انه وجود هذه المناطق هي فعلا هي علاج نفسي للاشخاص. Thank you, Dr. Bruno. You can continue.
شكرا أستاذ.
اهلا وسهلا.
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you again. Yes, what's about the relevance of this topic? I would like to remind you that about 56% of the global population today live in urban areas or cities with an increasing tendency. This increasing tendency is interestingly not because that the fertility of the people in the urban areas is higher than in the rural areas. In fact, it is quite low, the fertility of urban people compared to rural areas. But it's a question of migration. So we can follow, if we follow back the history of cities, of agglomeration, then we can see that since thousands of years, since the first cities were founded by humans, there is a migration from the rural countryside to the cities. And mostly this process today is seen very negatively because people argue, okay, that means in future there will be no rural population anymore. But this is not true. I mentioned the fertility of rural areas. So the rural areas will not die out in these terms, but the rural areas, that is the fact, they are the main source for the population growth in the cities. But what is also very important, that is the social dimension of this migration. Very often, if you consider single families, the patterns, what were the professions of these first migrants coming to the city and then remaining in the city, and then the second or the third or the fourth generation remaining in the city or moving to another, maybe bigger city, is that very often these families or these single persons, they climb up in the social level in the society. So that means from a social point of view, this urbanization or this agglomeration, this growth of this youth agglomeration has at least the potential that people can escape a little bit the narrow world of the rural countryside and have more opportunities to realize what they really want to do, or to make a better job and to get a better economy, or also get better access to education facilities like schools or universities. So I don't think that we can see this fact only negatively, but we have also to see the positive things. And in general, if you consider this extent of 56%, so the major part of the population on this globe lives in urban areas, and this is increasing. So maybe in 5 or 10 years, 60%, or in 20 years, 70%, or even more. That means that the major global human problems are connected with these urban areas. So if we find any solution for our human problems, then we have to find solutions for the urban areas. So that means also that if we think about potential solution, we necessarily have to focus on urban areas rather than to exclude them and to find the solution of problems in the rural countryside. I know there are also many study programs of agricultural sciences and so on, and rural countryside development, but I think this is an isolated approach, in the same way isolated as if we would apply urban planning or spatial planning only within the cities, and we would not consider the connections from these urban agglomerations to the rural countryside. So that means we need a holistic approach, and this is what we are applying in the spatial planning school in Dortmund, that we see the space as a holistic entity and how the different subspaces, the rural space, the urban space, the suburban space, are connected. And since urban areas are very complex, because we have a very high density of people in these urban areas, and we have also a very high number or a very high amount of different land use types, and these different land uses are competing with each other, partly are overlaying each others, and so on. That means that we should not hope in a way what liberal political parties suggest, that the market will regulate all the problems by itself. I don't believe this because of this complexity. We really need organizational structures and specific instruments which are considering the given complexity and try to deal with this complexity. And if we don't apply these or if we don't try to develop solutions considering this complexity, the other alternative would be that cities would more or less develop randomly, as if they have done partly in the past. So if we consider urban development in the past, in the history, then we see more or less two extreme types and a lot of intermediate cases. The one extreme is a totally planned city, more or less successful planned city, but there is at least a philosophy and there are principles applied, which may have been the right principles in the time when they were developed. But we have also the many examples, especially in the global South, in Latin America and in South Asia, where cities are not planned and are more developed randomly by facts, by migrating people and by informal housing. So I would kindly ask Professor Raid to translate this in Arabic as well.
Thank you دكتور جون. تحدث دكتور كرون انه 56% من الناس تعيش في المناطق الحضريه مع نزعه متزايده في عمليه الانتقال من مناطقهم الاساسيه الى المدن، وبالتالي هاي يعني الحديث هنا عن الهجره من الريف الى المدينه، وهي طبعا المشاكل اللي تنتج في المناطق الحضريه على مستويات متعدده، وصولا من يعني بدءا من الانفراستراكشر، الحاجه الى البنيه التحتيه اللي هي تكون محدده بمناطق محدده باستيعاب او ب قدره محدده على استيعاب كثافه سكانيه محدده، لان هذا ايضا راح ياثر على الكثافه السكانيه في هاي المناطق ما استوعبها سواء مدارس او جامعات. عمليه ايقاف هذا الهجره هي مهمه. ايضا عمليه توفير بدائل للهجره المعاكسه الى المناطق اللي الاساسيه اللي هي عايشين بها، او يجب انه عمليه تطوير المناطق الحضريه تحتاج الى هيكليه مدروسه بشكل دقيق. ما ممكن انه المدن يعني هاي عمليه الهجره الغير المسيطر عليها راح تؤدينا الى تطور المدن عشوائيا، وهذه راح تعمل لنا مشكله كلش كبيره. الطلبه في ديو دورتموند بالسبيشال بلان يتعاملوا مع التصميم الحضري بمستويات متعدده، شلون تنتقل من المناطق الحضريه الى urban area to the subdivision of this urban area الى الجزء المحدد، وهذا يعلمهم انه شلون يتعاملون مع التطور هاي المناطق وتوفير الخدمات لها. ويجب ان يكون هنالك هيكليه في عمليه تطوير المدينه، لا يجب ان يكون هناك تطوير عشوائي، يجب ان يكون هيكليه في تطوير المناطق الحضريه، وهذه الهيكليه يجب ان تكون بشكل متدرج وليس بشكل انفجاري غير مسيطر عليه، يجب ان يكون بشكل متدرج. وضرب ايضا في جنوب اسيا وفي امريكا كان بسبب الهجره لانه كان هنالك بعض التطور للمدن بشكل غير سليم ادى الى وجود مشاكل في عمليه اداره هاي المدينه. فالمدن استدامه المدينه يجب ان تكون بشكل يعني اساسي، يكون هنالك خلينا نقول تناسق او تعاون ما بين الناس اللي يعيشون في هذه المدينه متعلقه بكثافتهم، بالخدمات اللي المتوفره في هذه المدينه، وكيفيه تطوير المدينه بشكل متدرج وصولا الى توفير كل الخدمات وكل المعطيات اللي موجوده في المدينه. والتاسيس هوني يعني حسب ما انا استشف من هاي النقاط انه نحن يجب ان لا نجعل المدينه تتطور بشكل كبير جدا، وانما نوفر الخدمات في المناطق اللي آتين منها المهاجرين حتى تتم عملية الهجرة من المناطق الحضرية إلى الضواحي تكون بشكل هو الحل السليم في هذه الحالة. Okay, thank you, Dr. You can continue.
Yes,
شكرا أستاذ.
أهلا وسهلا.
Excuse me, if there is a question, please, you can also interrupt. So we can also, from my side, I don't have any problems if we make it more communicative or so, if you have just a question.
Okay, إذا أحد عنده سؤال أو شيء ما واضح أيضا ممكن يوضحه.
ما قصرت أستاذ.
ما حد اذا احد عنده سؤال ممكن دكتور برون يجاوب على سؤاله اذا شيء ما واضح او واضحه العمليه.
نعم خليه يستمر دكتور.
Okay, you can continue, Dr. Grun. It is clear for us.
Okay, thank you so much for clearing this. Yes, and I mentioned that the random development of cities is in many ways a bit negative. And this is what we see on the first slides, informal settlements.
Yeah.
Informal settlements. This is just a thing which when we see the history of settlements in Germany, we see Germany in the past, when in your country, in Iraq, have been cities created since thousands of years. In Germany, cities were absent. So the first German cities were created just 2000 years ago, but not by Germans, because the Germans were not able to build cities. The Germans in those times were illiterate, uneducated, very powerful, but stupid people. And they were settling all over the country in, let's say, informal settlements, but only very densely populated settlements. That means 2 or 3 farms were forming one village, and these villages were located in an agricultural island in a huge dark forest. And this was the situation when the Romans brought their culture to Germany and founded the first cities like Cologne, Mainz, and others. And from this time beginning, some of the Germanic tribes, especially the Franconians, adapted to Roman culture and copied the technique and the tradition of Roman culture, how to build cities. And this was a quite interesting thing, because this worked for hundreds of years, or let's say more than 1,000 years. But now, today, we face the problem, we face huge problems under the conditions of climate change, because the Romans need good agricultural land for providing their cities with food. This is the first time where we can see the interrelation or the connection between the rural countryside and the cities. So from the very beginning of city planning in Germany, the rural countryside and the cities were connected. The Romans selected the best fertile soils, which is mostly in alluvial areas along the rivers and partly in the loess areas, which are very fertile. It's an aeolic sediment which came here after the last glacier times. So, and now we face the first time the problem that all these cities located in these rivers, we have an increasing danger of floodings, like what we see here in the informal settlements. This photo is from South Africa. But the interesting point is that the Germans always believed that their settlements are formal settlements according to the Roman culture and Roman strategy. But now, under condition of climate change, we see, oh, this is a very bad situation, because all the cities like Cologne and Frankfurt and so on, they are still growing. And we are more and more paving the alluvial zones, and therefore we take more and more space for the water, for the flooding, and the problem will be increased. So the same occurs under totally different conditions in many countries in the global south, but here it's a little bit different. Here the cities were founded in some countries, like in your countries, much earlier than in Germany, and also the climate conditions are very, very different from this. But very often we have the situation that these informal settlers, because they came very poor from the countryside, they were not allowed or they were not privileged to go to the existing settlements, and therefore they started to look for any place where nobody took actions against them when they put their settlements there. And you can believe in many countries, in India, in Bangladesh, or in Latin America, the more privileged settlers or inhabitants of the cities, which are there for decades or with their families for hundreds of years, they have delineated all the plots which were valuable for them. And they only left invaluable land, mostly land because of their long time experience that this land will be flooded. But these informal settlers, they were not familiar to the ecological situation. And therefore, very often they moved to the flooding areas because these flooding areas were the only areas where the more privileged persons, the privileged classes, did not complain about them, did not call the police to move them away, and so on. So that means that these informal settlements, also again considered under conditions of climate change, especially in India or Bangladesh or those countries, they are huge dangers because the climate change leads to the fact that the flood extremes will increase from year to year. And that means not only that these informal settlers suffer personally because of their danger and they lose members of their families and so on, but from a social point of view, they can never adapt to the more privileged classes, because in every flooding event, every 5 years or every 10 years, everything which they have built up in the 5 or 10 years will be taken away from them. So that means there is no potential for adaptation to the social situation. That means the difference between the privileged and the less privileged is increasing. So we have to think about, are there instruments, are there strategies how to fill the gap between the classes? And that's an interesting point, that this question, the social question, occurred in Germany about 100 years ago. And 100 years ago, we had very extreme differences between the different classes in Germany. It was still the year 1919, the first democracy was established. So that means about 110 years ago, there wasn't even a democracy, and there were different classes, and their votes in the elections were not or did not have the same value. So if you were a nobleman, your vote counts more than if you were just a worker, and so on. But in these times, the architects and also social politicians thought about this garden city movement from UK and about social housing projects. And this picture, what you can see here, is still under today's condition a competitive housing area where many people would like to live in if it would be possible. And I ask myself very often, why don't we build more of these type of houses again? Because in Germany, again, we have problems of affordable houses, not so much about safe houses. Okay, there are flooding in some cities and so on, but this is mostly we can solve this with technical solutions, but we'll see what happens in future with the climate change. But the social housing is a very interesting topic, because there were also created in the Weimar Republic new legal entities such as cooperatives. So that means poor people could pay a very small amount into this cooperative, and could wait 5 or 10 years. And after this, the cooperative took all this money from the many people, built houses, and from the revenue of the houses, they built new houses. And after some years, these poor people were provided with one flat or with one house in these cooperatives. And we have in this tradition since 1949 in the Federal Republic of Germany, a long tradition of social housing. Unfortunately, in one of the last governments in the years 2000, 2006, this social housing was abolished because of federal and legal debates according to our constitution. But meanwhile, this has been rearranged again. And this leads again to more social housing again. But probably this could also be one attempt to think about, because when you see on the other hand side, there are so many people on the global market looking for investment. We have a low interest rate now on the global level. So compared to what happened in Weimar Republic, there were inflations of partly 50 or 100%, which makes investment much more difficult than in these low interest rate times like today. So we really should think about to establish again such cooperatives for the people, and to create more of these buildings. Interestingly is that the first of the social housing projects were invented even 500 years ago in the city of Augsburg in Germany by the Fugger, who was a very wealthy guy, and he made this investment for his workers. And this is still these Fugger flats in Augsburg. These are still the most cheapest flats in Germany, because this was fixed in a contract in 1500, so 500 years ago. But this again shows that these can be really sustainable solutions if these housing projects, they are 100 years old, but they are still very appreciated by the tenants. And the example of Augsburg even shows that such legal constructions can keep more than 500 years. So this was this legal construction worked in a monarchy. This worked in the first democracy. This worked even under National Socialistic in the Nazi time. And again, it worked in the second democracy in Germany. So a 500 years construction, this is very interesting. That should give us the task to think about whether or not we, and especially also how we could newly create such cooperatives for the good of the poor people, that we can achieve this aspect of the Sustainability Development Goal 11.
Okay, thank you, Dr. يمكن هذا السلايد ممكن نختصره بالمقارنه بين الصورتين اللي امامنا. طبعا بالبدايه حكى على يعني انه على بدايه نشاه المدن الالمانيه قبل 2000 عام، او نشات اول مدينه المانيه، وقد ونحن يمكن نعرف انه اغلب المدن اللي تنشا هي تنشا على ضفاف الانهار. فحكى على السكن الانفورمال القانوني او التجاوزات والمقارنه مع السوشيال هاوسينج. والسكن اللي هو الانفورمال الان اكو مشاكل كبيره جدا بسبب التغير المناخ اللي يواجهه العالم، وخاصه في المناطق الفقيره. طبعا السكن اللي يعني اللي هو القانوني، خلينا نقول هو التجاوزات اللي يمكن حتى عندنا في مدينتنا. يمكن هاي الصوره الاولى اللي موجوده فيضان في على مجموعه من اليونتس. يمكن هاي نحن وشعناها قبل سنوات في منطقه الخوصر، في اللي هي مناطق بعويزه، الناس اللي سكنوا في حوض نهر الخوصر. لما صارت الفيضانات والسيول اللي اتت من خارج المدينه، صارت عندنا تقريبا نفس هاي العمليه ايضا، يعني ناس تهدمت بيوتها. هاي هي المشاكل اللي بسبب انه نحن يعني متت عمليه تنظيم المدن حتى تكون مدن مثل ما كان بالسلايد الاول. طبعا هم انتقلوا من خلال الثقافه الرومانيه على مثل شلون كانوا يبدون المدن، واللي هي كانت انه يختارون ربطوا المصدر الغذاء او مصدر الرزق بموقع المدينه، واللي هي كان يعني يربطون مع نوعيه التربه وغيرها وغيرها. فركز الدكتور على انه المشاكل المدن اللي تواجهها بسبب تغير المناخ، وهذا اللي يمكن اغلبها في المناطق اللي هي في مناطق الهند وفي بنغلاديش، المشاكل اللي تصير من خلال تغير المناخ وخطره على الفيضانات، واللي يؤدي الى السيول التي تجاوز. طبعا هذا بالتاكيد يكون في هذه المناطق اللي النموذج اللي امامنا هو في الصوره الاولى من السلايد. بالعكس بالضبط هو السوشيال هاوسنج اللي هو يعني السكن الاجتماعي، او من خلال مجموعه جروبس منطق يعني هل هي كانت يقصد هي الجمعيات الاسكانيه. هو حكى انه مجموعه من ممكن يتفقون ما بيناتهم. طبعا هذا الاركتكتشر يعني كانت افكار من المعماريين باتجاه المدن الخضراء، انه جروبس ينشئون مثل جمعيه او فقد في التجمع بيناتهم لانشاء مجموعه من الهاوسنج اللي هي على ضمن المحددات البيئيه، ضمن المحددات التخطيطيه اللي ملتزمه ضمن الجفرمنت، ضمن الحكومه اللي تخلتها. والكونستراكشن ما قد يمتد الى فتره ايضا طبعا ضمن الافوربل هاوسنج، هذا يعني ايضا اسكان ميسر، ولهذا ياخذ فتره في عمليه الانشاء حتى لا يكون هو يؤثر على الحاله الاقتصاديه لهذا الاشخاص. هذه العمليه راح تقلل الفجوه، يعني الانتقال من الصوره الاولى الى الصوره الثانيه يجب تكون بشكل متدرج حتى تقلل الفجوه ما بين ساكنين في المناطق الانفورمال مع مناطق اللي هي المناطق اللي هي السوشيال هاوسنج، او اللي بتكون منظمه بشكل اكبر، و تكون ايضا ضمن الافوربل هاوسنج. طبعا ايضا حكى يعني باتجاهات ضرب مثلا على مدينه كولون وفرانكفورت اللي هي ايضا بسبب انه انشئت بالبدايه قد من صار يعني هذه المناخيه قد تواجه هاي الخطر اللي تواجهه بسبب التغيرات المناخيه وما تحدث من التاثيرات البيئيه على التاثيرات على البيئه بسبب التغير المناخي. Between this picture in this slide مقارنه ما بين او شاغلين المباني في الصورتين اللي ضمن السلايد. اوكي دكتور برونو.
Thank you so much for our translation. Yeah, next topic, which is very interesting, is affordable and accessible public transport. And I have put this into a little bit provocative question. So I will not talk about Wi-Fi, but about Wi-free public transport for everybody. So that means which arguments would be to make public transport free for everybody? I think the first is the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, because it is more efficient that several people use a bus or a tram or underground or so than all these people drive as single persons in the car. The next is, which is linked with the first, that it's also reducing all external effects. In economical terms, external effects are described as effects which are not measured by the investors or by the actors in economy, but there may be some disimprovements or some problems in other sectors which are not officially formalized, and these external effects are not included in the national budget are not affecting the GDP of the country. So there is an interesting discussion about this in economy, but we have to consider that all these following costs, greenhouse gas emissions lead to climate change, and all the consequence of climate change, all the damages which are occurring, can be regarded as such external effects. Another point is just very simple. It is leading to the reduction of administration costs, because nobody needs to buy a ticket, nobody needs to control the tickets, nobody needs to empty the trash cans where the tickets are collected after their use. So this is also one very simple point, that you can reduce the costs. And another point is, of course, that you are improving the social balance, considering basic human needs, because poor people, they think one time or even twice before they buy a ticket. If they are if they are not forced to buy a ticket, they don't think about. Then they just can take the tube or the bus or the tram when they want to go from point A to point B in the city. So it's more easy for them. The wealthy people, they also don't think about. They just take their car and drive. But the poor people, they are not so free, and therefore they need more the kind of compensation in form of this accessible public transport. And of course, the public transport will lead to the reduction of car traffic, and by this, it will also lead to the reduction of space needed for car traffic. And this is a huge potential for us. If we don't need so much space in our urban areas for all the streets, we can think about alternatives. What do we do with this space? We could convert the streets to green space. We could convert them partly to bike lanes. So that means we can improve the living quality of this urban space. And we can also offer alternatives to private transport when people probably don't want to use the public transport by different reasons. So we have a big biking community in some German cities. In the city of Münster, nearly 40% of the whole traffic in the city is done by bikers, which is one of the top cities in Germany. And therefore, of course, the city of Münster has provided many specific bike lanes for them, but even this could be improved. And another argument is that this reduction of car traffic leads to the reduction of noise, and thereby to a reduction of negative health effects. We have evidence that noise in the long term leads to a lot of many negative health effects, and therefore, of course, negative external effects in the health sector. So that means we could reduce these negative effects in the health sector if we reduce the noise, if we also encourage the people or motivate the people to use the bike. It's much more healthy to use the bike than to use the car or also to use the public transport. So the fact is, for instance, that we can compare the average life expectancy in cities like Münster, where 40% of the people use the bike. The life expectancy is about 10 years higher than in other areas like Gelsenkirchen, a city where a bike is not very popular and where we have a lot of noise caused by traffic, but also by industry and so on. So all these negative effects, they not only lead to negative health effects, but also to a reduced life expectancy. And this is what people really should think about. And we have also, meanwhile, some examples. The whole Luxembourg, the first state which introduced this free public transport for everybody. In Germany, we have at least some cities which introduce this system, and I really hope for the next elections there are some scenarios, and these scenarios reveal that there's, compared to the last elections in Germany, that the Green Party will be at least much stronger than 4 years ago. And therefore, probably such projects, more bike lanes, reducing the streets for the cars, could be discussed in the future German government. And I'm looking forward to this discussion, and also our School of Spatial Planning will give, of course, recommendations on this, how this could be established in different areas, in the rural area, in the city of Dortmund, and so on. Thank you. So
we hope Dortmund also. Yeah. Okay. هون سلايد why free transport for everybody. دكتور هون يدعو الى انه تكون النقل العام هو مجانا لاسباب متعدده. امامنا هاي مجموعه من الاسباب. النقطه الاولى اللي هي تقليل انه عمليه الانتقال الى انه تشجيع النقل العام وجعله التقليل من انبعاث الغازات الملوثه للبيئه، وبالتالي راح نستخدم النقل العام، سيارات راح تكون قليله، فعمليه انبعاث الغازات راح تكون اقل، وبالتالي راح طبعا الكل تلجا الى هذا الاستخدام لانه هو فري، فتشجيع على عدم استخدام النقل الخاص باتجاه العام، فيؤدي الى تقليل التلوث للبيئه وتقليل الاحتباس الحراري. الحوادث اللي قد تحصل، تقليل الحوادث اللي قد تحصل بسبب النقل الخاص ايضا هاي نقطه مهمه. تقليل الكوست، الكلفه اكيد، اذا الكلفه راح تكون بما انه هي فري فان اكيد الكلفه راح تكون كلش قليله. ايضا هاي نقطه مهمه هي السوشيال بالانس، انه يعني الموازنه ما بين الفئات المجتمع وحاجات الانسانيه راح تكون للكل هي فري، وبالتالي يكون هذه عمليه الموازنه واضحه جدا او متوفره في النقل العام لكل الاشخاص اللي ممكن يستخدمون هذا النقل. ايضا تقليل الكار ترافيك، استخدام السيارات وما ينتج عنه من النقاط اللي قلناها من البدايه وهي الان، انه اولا يعني عدم استخدامنا لهذه السيارات او النقل الخاص راح يؤدينا الى تنظيف البيئه، تقليل التلوث، تقليل الاحتباس الحراري. ايضا تقليل الافكتس اللي قد يحصل. ايضا عمليه انه تقليل استخدام السيارات خاصه، راح قد يعني ما نحتاج الى مجموعه من المواقف السيارات لغرض ركن هذه السيارات، وبالتالي راح تكون عندنا الاريا، راح يساعدنا زياده في المساحات اللي من الممكن تستخدم كمساحات خضراء، واللي هي احد الاعتبارات الاساسيه في المدن المستدامه، زياده المساحه الخضراء ضمن مؤشرات الليد، انه المناطق الخضراء المفتوحه بالانس مع البيلدينج ماسز، وهذه نقطه كلش مهمه فيما لو انه كان انه النقل العام يكون فري، اذا راح يوفر لنا بالتالي مساحات من الممكن هاي المساحات تستغل كمساحات خضراء. ايضا السبيس نيدنج اللي هي فور ذا كار ترافيك، هاي مثل ما قلنا هذه راح تكون بدالها هي فور ذا بايك. والمثال يعني عمليه استخدامنا للسيارات، خطوط النقل سوري الدراجات الهوائيه وخطوط النقل بها، وضرب مثال انه مدينه مونستر 40% من سكانها يستخدمون الدراجات في عمليه التنقل، وهذا يعني كلش نسبه كلش عاليه في استخدام بمدينه استخدام هكذا نوعيه من التنقل. ايضا ما يتبعه من اللي هو عمليه استخدام الترافيك، كار ترافيك، تقليل الكار ترافيك، راح يتبعه ايضا هو مثل ما قلنا تقليل من النويز، تقليل من البوليوشن، من التلوث سواء السمعي او التلوث البيئي، بالاضافه الى يكون يؤثر على الصحة العامة بشكل كلش كبير، لأن راح البيئة راح تكون نظيفة. طبعا تأثيرات الصحة هي مو فقط يعني ما يتبعها من الكوست اللي يعني ايش قد نحن ننفق حتى نحصل على مثلا هواء نظيف، او الهواء الملوث ايش قد راح ياثر على صحتنا، وايش قد نحن راح ننفق حتى نراجع اطباء او ادويه او غيرها وغيرها. فعمليه تقليل الاستخدام الخاص للسياره من خلال جعل النقل العام هو فري. شوف كل هاي السيكونس، كل هاي السلسله هي متعلقه فقط بالنقطه الاولى، كل هاي مؤثرات اتت منها النقطه الاولى. والنقطه الاخيره انه في المانيا هنالك مدينتين اللي هي واحده منهم لوكسمبورغ بدات تنطي هاي الاكزامبل، يعني بدات تعمل انه النقل العام هو فري، وتتم دراسه هاي الحاله، وقد يكون تعمم على كل المدن الالمانيه فيما كانت نجاح هذه التجربه بشكل مرضي للمسؤولين. اوكي، اذا كان اكو سؤال ايضا اطرح مره اخرى، اذا كان اكو شيء غير واضح او سؤال ممكن نحن او دكتور بروني يمكن يجاوب عليه.
Thank you so much, Professor Reid.
Hello.
Yeah, I will try to make it short and sweet. The next topic is saving the world's natural and cultural heritage. This is quite very interesting because if we humans today consider us as as cultural people, so we have to define how do we deal with cultural artifacts, with cultural products and so on. So that means we have to think about what do we do with our own history, with our human history, or also with our regional human history. And this is quite interesting. This is a one point is very often focusing just on single projects, what I mentioned here with industrial heritage, that there are industrial collieries or industrial sites, and when they are not anymore in use, we think about, should we destroy them, should we redevelop the land, or should we maintain at least a part of the monuments? But much more complex is the first example here, to consider the whole historic cityscapes in urban development, because this very often means that new modern development is not really cannot really be combined with these historic monuments. Otherwise, this historic cityscape would be destroyed. So that means the city government and the planners have to think. They don't want to cut the economic development of the city only because it's a beautiful historic city, but there are very important and very good examples. Again, the city of Münster, or here in this case, the city of Lübeck in northern Germany. And these cities tell us a lot of interesting things, especially according to our German history. And therefore, it's really a part of the cultural heritage, because in cities, there were, since Middle Ages, we very often talk about the dark Middle Age and think, oh, the Middle Age was a dark period without any rules or anything, but this is not true. The interesting point is that these very early structures, it's a pre-democratic
there is
I think we lost Professor Grün lost his internet.
Yes.
Possibly his internet was tired. I'm sure he will join us again. Maybe Dr. Wright, you can step in.
Like our internet.
Mm.
طبعا دكتور جرون يعني لماذا يجب ان نحافظ على المناطق الطبيعيه والابنيه التراثيه او الايربن او المناطق الحضريه التاريخيه؟ هاي ايضا مدينه مونستر في عمليه الحفاظ. انا ما اعرف وجهه نظره لان ايضا يعني انقطعت المقطع دي، بس يعني هي نقطه كلش مهمه، خاصه ان احنا نعاني وجدل الكبير الان في عمليه اعاده الحفاظ، اعاده المباني التراثيه في مدينه الموصل القديمه، والجدل اللي حيصير من خلاله وايضا من خلال المسابقه اللي في اعاده تاهيل منطقه الجامع النوري وغيرها. النقطه كانت كلش مهمه، كنا نحب نسمعها بصراحه من هاي من وجهه نظر التخطيط المكاني. خصوصا ايضا يعني اكو يعني في المانيا التجربه كانت كلش قريبه، لان كثير من المدن دمرت بعد الحرب العالميه الثانيه بشكل واسع جدا، وتم اعاده بنائها بنفس الماتيريال، طبعا في بعض المدن بنفس المواد اللي انشئت من خلالها، من خلال جمع اللقى والماتيريالز او البيلدنج ماتيريال والمواد البنائيه في عمليه اعاده تاهيل هذه المناطق الحضريه، خصوصا المناطق التاريخيه. يعني انا اتذكر في احدى السلايدات اللي هي اعاده بناء مدينه دورتموند، كان اكو مبنى للبلديه اللي هو اصبح في العصر في احد الاوقات هو عباره عن سجن او هكذا شيء، لكن هو يعبر عن هويه المدينه. لما غادت السلطات بعد الحرب انه تهد هذا المبنى، كانت طلاب الفيزياء هي من طلاب يعني علوم الفيزياء في جامعه دورتموند، هم من كانوا وقفوا ضد عمليه الهد لهذا المبنى، والمبنى بقى وطورت المنطقه الحضاريه اللي حوله، لانه كان يعبر عن هويه المدينه. فاعتزاز الاشخاص او الساكنين المدينه بالهويه من خلال مبنى هذا المبنى هو يؤشر على حاله او على فد رمز او على ايفنت حدث مهم جدا في للمدينه. هذا كلش مهم لانه روح المدينه هو قد تمثل في هذا المكان. فكيف نحن في مدينتنا الموصل القديمه عندنا كثير من الشواهد والرمزيه على المدينه اللي عمرها يمتد اكثر من 5000 سنه. يجب يكون عندنا وعي لما من الممكن انه شلون نحن نطور المدينه مالتنا، او نحافظ او على التراث اللي ترك في المدينه. وطبعا كثير من المناطق لا زالت هي تحتفظ بخصائصها، تمام اكو نسبه كبيره منها قد دمر، ايضا يحتاج طبعا اكيد الى يعني الى خطط واسعه. والجامعه طبعا لها دور مؤثر جدا، لان الجامعه الان فعلا هي لها دور مؤثر في المجتمع. يعني صوت الجامعه يصل الى المجتمع بشكل سريع بسبب الثقه اللي بنيت ما بين الجامعه وما بين المجتمع. فالجامعه لها تاثير على المجتمع وعلى النخب في هذا المجتمع للاخذ بالاتجاه الافضل في عمليه الحفاظ على ما تبقى من النسيج الحضري في المدينه القديمه وحتى في نينوى التاريخيه.
I don't think Professor Grün is back with us.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's getting late. We are here already together for quite some time, and I think he was about to reach the end anyway. So if he's gonna join us, I think we're gonna thank Professor Grün for giving us a very nice introduction and a very global perspective to a lot of challenges which are related to the sustainability goal number 11 on sustainable cities and communities. And now you've been hearing a lot Professor Grün talking and discussing different problems, different challenges which we are experiencing in many parts of the world. But solutions are never global, but solution starts from where we all live and which are local. So we would very much like to invite you to share with us what your ideas are for local solutions. What are solutions to these problems where you live? What is important to be done in your communities to ensure there is decent and sustainable housing for everyone? What could be transport solutions of the future in where you live? How to deal with the challenge of saving the historical global heritage of civilization, which has, which Mosul and Nineveh region is one of the richest, richest heritage in the world, and where you are given the task to take great care for us, for all of us in the world in the future, and how to make the spaces and the communities in which we live in more livable for everyone. And everyone is very much invited to share your designs, your views, your ideas, your visions, and maybe with us as part of the Creativity Festival, but also to alert us to problems and to areas which need action in the future. So please, everyone, make use of the month of May and get creative and share your perspectives and vision with us.
اوكي الان هو دعوه الى انطلاق المسابقه هاي الابداعيه لطلبتنا الاعزاء. المحاضره اللي سبقت هي من الممكن من خلالها طلبتنا الاعزاء يوفرون فكره، قد تكون هاي الفكره تمثل ب اوكي دكتور جنويا with us.
Yes, I'm so sorry for this technical problems. I even tried to write an email to Heike event and it didn't came out, so I had to start all the things from scratch. But I think I nearly have finished. So you have the slides. I think it is more valuable for you now to, after this break, to start the discussion. I think that is my suggestion, but I don't know how we deal in such an unforeseen event. I'm really sorry, and I apologize for this.
Yeah.
No problem.
So I think this is a nice opportunity, and I think that's what we should do. First of all, I wanted to thank you very much. I think all of us now, we got inspired thinking about these global challenges, which have different forms and different contexts. Very much. Thank you very much for being with us today, sharing with us your expertise. And I would really like to give the opportunity to everyone to ask questions and maybe also to give your response. So maybe we should make use of the
please. Everybody is
opportunity.
welcome. Sure. Thank you.
اوكي اذا احد عنده سؤال من الحاضرين يمكن دكتور برون يوضح اذا احد عنده اي نقطه غامضه. طبعا السلايد الاخير هو يتحدث على توفير المناطق الخضراء وتاثيرها من جوانب متعدده: ايكولوجيكال، كلتشر، سوشيال، ايكونوميك، من الاقتصاد، نفسيه و ثقافية واجتماعية. طبعا أكيد يعني المناطق الخضراء هي تؤثر بشكل كلش كبير على مختلف نواحي الحياة، على البيئة وعلى الإنسان بشكل كبير. الآن طبعا يعني كان شكر هو للدكتور يقولون من قبل الدكتورة هايك على هاي الفرصة إنه يعطي هاي المحاضرة، وإذا أي أحد عنده سؤال أو نقطة غير واضحة هو جاهز للرد عليها.
Excuse me, I do have a question.
Yeah.
I like the idea of free transportation, but is it really going to make essential role in a green society or sustainable cities?
So unfortunately, I don't know if that was a question now.
I mean, this free transportation
In English, if that was a question.
The free transportation.
Yeah.
Is it, I mean, to have a free transportation, that mean we need more buses and metros and trains and more factories to produce this kind of vehicles. It has got another negative side of more factories.
Okay, I see the point. But we have the factories. So I think the one point is there are many factories on the world producing buses, trains, and all these things. So probably there must be even more of them, that is sure. But this would be one process like any other process. If you imagine there was a time on the globe without cars, without trains, without buses. And probably people in those times also ask, okay, we need factories. Where can we put the factories to build cars and so on? So the humans can manage. We are so powerful. We can manage everything what we want. But the point is, there is very often a kind of dissonance what we really want. And in case of this free transport, the interesting fact is that from a market point of view, public transport very often doesn't work. So that means we have to subsidize the public transport in average in Germany by 50% or so. So the tickets which are bought by the users are just 50% of the costs. So, and considering this, we could also say, okay, if the society is able to pay 50%, then probably the society is also able to pay 100%. If we can reduce the costs by reduced administration, we have reduced health costs by the external effects and so on. Probably it is the same money. It's just a redistribution with many positive effects on life quality, on health, on the noise situation and so on. So I would say it's feasible if the people want. But you see in the United States, nobody would like this because they prefer to drive their car. But it's a huge amount of external costs, and they will never fulfill CO2 reduction goals. And the new president has promised that United States will fulfill the CO2 reduction goal. So this is how can we fulfill these agreements when not looking more detailed into the transport sector and to make a new policy and to make new arrangements there.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other question?
Sado Hayamo.
Thank you.
Yeah, first I would like to say thank you so much, dear Professor Gorun, for this interesting question, and I would like to thank also for Professor Anwar and Professor Haika for this interesting information about the urban sustainability. And when we come into planning, we should not only think about like planning in Germany or planning in Iraq, because this is completely different from the term of climate, from the term that there is very important thing we are different, is annual growth rate of population. In Iraq, the growth rate of population is around near to 3. Yeah, and this is very, very high growth rate. And the providing of services require a high process of acceleration of providing services. Therefore, it's always when we think about planning in Iraq, we are forgetting this point, because this point is making a huge problem. In recent years, we see that the growing of informal houses or informal agglomerations is getting higher and higher due to this problem. So just this was a kind of comment I like to add to this presentation in a term of shortage of housing and the problem of housing.
Yes, thank you so much for this comment. This is fully true. I absolutely agree with this. And there are even countries, when you think we should not, or when you say we should not think only about Iraq and Germany, there are countries like Nigeria and Africa where an average fertility rate of 6 or 7 or something like this occurs. Also, Pakistan is a very, very quickly growing country. Bangladesh, I mentioned, and it might be even also stronger than Iraq. But in fact, it is in general the point. What can we do as humans? We can say, okay, our birth rate is so high, we cannot do anything. So we just let the random process with all these consequences I described. When you see in the German history, many of these things, the social housing project was done when the fertility rate in Germany was much higher, comparable to that what you have today in Iraq. So if we even go to the beginning of the industrialization, there were many families in Germany with 8 or 5 kids. I can really show in my family. I have 3 kids. My father had 2 kids. My grandfather had 2 kids. My great-grandfather had 8 kids, and his father has 7 kids. So you see, really, in these times of industrialization, the fertility rate was much higher. But in some parts, there were planning actions, regulations taking how to build cities, how to organize the process, also the public transport. When you remember, the first tram was invented by Siemens 1888, more than 120 or 130 years ago. And in those times, the cities were growing very quickly in Germany. But the people, they saw to plan public transport systems is the only possibility to cope with the problem. So I think no matter where you're growing or not, it is the question how you can organize this growth. And when you have a very strong growth, it is very difficult. You cannot really, if you let the growth happen without any planning measures, you don't know what is the outcome. Then it is a surprise, a random effect, and so on. And if you try to plan this to accompany and also to plan very quickly that you can cope with this new population or with this increasing population, then you can better allocate the new facilities, what you need, the new schools, the kindergarten, daycares, universities, new traffic systems, and so on. So I'm convinced that to organize this growth process, like also to organize in some countries shrinking processes, is better than to believe that the market regulates everything itself.
Thank you, Professor Grün. I'm looking a little bit at the time because I think it's past some people's bedtime already. And some of us also, I think in Ramadan time also have other family responsibilities. So I think we're gonna close the discussion here, and I'm sure like there'll be future events where we can exchange thoughts and discussions. And I would very much like to extend the invitation once again to everyone. Let's continue the discussion in a more diverse, creative way on the various platforms we have established to exchange ideas and thoughts, and everyone please feel invited to contribute to our creativity festival. What is special? About this is that not just that your artwork will be shown in the internet, will be exhibited in the Mosul University Student Center, and also we'll exhibit it in the city of Graz, which in summer also has a city installation where they are thinking about what are sustainable culture solutions for the city in Graz, and they are very excited to also see how you are discussing and reflecting about that. But also this creativity event dedicated to this goal will also be connected to the engineering week at Mosul University, as I understood. And maybe Dr. Wright, you can share a little bit on that with us also.
I translate this.
No, I was just thinking maybe you can, you can translate, but also you can explain a little bit with the connection with the engineering week for this.
اوكي. مثل ما قلنا قبل شوي ننطلق، يعني لان نحن نطلق المسابقه الابداعيه الخاصه بالمدن المستدامه. ممكن النقاط اللي تم الحديث عنها بدايه من الافوردبل هاوسنج، السكن الميسور، او افكار متعلقه بتوفير السكن القليل الكلفه او المتيسر للجميع، او الافكار المتعلقه بالنقل، تحول من النقل الخاص الى النقل العام، او استخدام الدراجات في عمليه التنقل. يعني واحده كثيره من الافكار، اذا يمكن لو كان موجود عندي شيرنج الان، اكو فد بوستر انه 70 سيارات لنقل خاص تحت المساحه هي لفقط سيارتين اذا تم استخدام الدراجات الهوائيه. فاذا عمليه التغير هون كبيره جدا، وهذا هو ضمن السستينبل هاوسنج، السستينبل سيتي. ايضا من ناحيه الافكار المتعلقه بالحفاظ على الهويه التاريخيه للمدن، او الحفاظ على هويه المدن الصناعيه فيما كان عندنا مدن صناعيه، او توفير المناطق الخضراء في مدينتنا وتاثيرها على المجتمع. كل هذه من الممكن تكون افكار. هاي الافكار ممكن تعمل لها تعمل لها تمثيل اما بقطعه نثريه، بيت من الشعر باللغه الانجليزيه، قد يكون عباره عن فيديو لدقيقتين، قد يكون رسوم متحركه، او شخص يتحدث او يعطي ايماءات لشيء معين متعلق بهذه العمليه، او عباره عن دراوينج، رسم، او هذا الرسم قد يكون بالكمبيوتر او بالرسوم التراديشنال اللي هي رسوم الزيتيه او غيرها، مع وصف بسيط باللغه الانجليزيه، او عباره عن نحت، او عباره عن نماذج ضمن الافكار اللي نحن نطلقها. طبعا انا نركز على الاركتكتشر، يعني ستودنت الاركتكتشر او الانجينيرنج، لان هاي ايضا المسابقه هي يكون مور كلوزر اكثر على الهندسه كلش قريب من بقيه الفعاليات، ولهذا هي كانت ريليتد. الاكزيبيتيف مالتها راح يكون ايضا عمليه العرض في اسبوع كليه الهندسه in the engineering week اللي راح يكون يوم 24/6 في قاعه دجله. وهذه فرصه كلش كبيره لطلبه الهندسه انه يعرضون اعمالهم امام مجتمع انترناشونال، مجتمع اكاديمي عالمي دولي مكون من 3 جامعات: جامعه الموصل، جامعه تيو دورتموند، جامعه غراز. يعني فرصه كلش كبيره انه الطالب انه يشارك اولا ويفوز ثانيا في هذه الفعاليه. يعني فرصه كلش كبيره ما تكون دائما متوفره. فانا ادعو انه كل الطلاب وخاصه طلاب الهندسه للمشاركه وبقوه في هاي الفعاليه اللي مثل ما قلت لا تتوفر دائما بشكل سهل. Okay, Dr. Haik, I explain for our students. This event is related with the more closer to the engineering students, especially architecture student, and all creative idea we can exhibit it in the week of engineering week in the 24 of June.
Okay, thank you very much. And everyone, as in the previous month, you can submit your artwork via our website. And we will also...
الأعمال ممكن ترفع على الويب سايت اللي أمامنا. يعني بعد ما تنفذون الأعمال، الويب سايت اللي أمامكم ترفعون الأعمال على هذا الموقع اللي موجود في أمامنا.
And you can also, if you like, we will exhibit and give you some of the artwork, give you some input, share some additional information with you, things that may inspire you via our social media accounts. So if you're not following us, follow us. It's always nice to be also a social media community and to share some thoughts and inspiration with each other. I would also like to remind everyone that the contribution for last month's topics, it's still open. So if the topic of sustainable cities is not what is speaking to your heart and inspiring you, but you last month you were so busy with exams, but actually the idea of strong, reliable institution, ending violence against children, the targets related to legal identity documents, reducing corruption is something which is more speaking to your heart. And you just last month, you didn't have time because you were so busy with the exams. You are still very much invited to submit your artwork in that regard also. So the topic is still open. And I think Dr. Fauzi, you also wanted to say a little bit more about that topic. I hope you're not yet asleep.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Heike. Thank you, Dr. Goran, about your lecture. And ladies and gentlemen, actually, we are very happy to be in this festival. And I want just to remember you that we are still collect the activity of goal 16, which is peace and justice and strong institution, but still we get very few print actually. Those are not our goal till now. We need more work from you. Maybe you are very I have no time last month because examination in Mosul University are there. You have time now because we are in vacation about 1 or 2 weeks. We have also celebrate with the Eid, and this good time, I think, to remember our 2 goals. Goal number 16 and the last goal about sustainable cities and communities. You can able to share us your idea through the video for 2 minutes, or through painting, through drawing, through point, or any activity you thought that it is help us to transfer the idea of those 2 goals to the other people, and to let them to use those goals as goals for their life. So please help us, and we will transfer your work to others through our exhibition in the Mosul University Student Center, and many other websites we have on the Instagram and on the Facebook and other places. So you will become, my dear student, very, very famous through this activity. In Arabic, رجاء أود أن أذكركم بأنه لا يزال لدينا فرصة للرسم أو المشاركة في فعالية الهدف رقم 16، اللي هو كان عن السلام والعدالة وتحقيق السترونج انستيتيوشن، اللي هي المؤسسات القوية في الدولة. فالحقيقة هذه الهدف أو هذه مجموعة الأهداف المترابطة لحد الآن لم تصلنا. يعني الحقيقة رسومات كانت يعني تمثل، خلينا نقول بالشكل الأساس، الربط اللي موجود ما بين السلام وما بين العدالة والمؤسسات القوية في المجتمع. وهذه نريد مشاركتكم بها، لأنه راح الحقيقة تنشر في مجالات واسعة وكبيرة جدا، سواء من خلال المركز الطلابي، من خلال الويب سايتات مع الجامعة، من خلال أيضا دورتموند وغراز لديهم معارض راح ينشرون هذه الرسومات. فلعله سوف تشتهر عزيزي الطالب، عزيزتي الطالبة، من خلال هذه المراكز العلمية اللي موجودة في العالم وداخل جامعة الموصل أيضا. وشكرا لكم جميعا. Thank you, Dr. Heike.
So, and now we are coming to an end of this activity, and we have one tradition, and this is that we are inviting everyone who wants also to join with a camera, so that we could make a final picture all together and also see our faces. And while you are doing that, I would like to make use of the opportunity also to invite you to our student conference, because now over the last months, always when we've been meeting, it has always been the professor speaking. And we think that's a little bit boring. So we also want to give you the space to share and discuss and tell us what you think and what is important for you. So we are organizing a big student conference, starting with a small explanation and introduction in the middle of May. And then on the 19th of June, the whole day will be dedicated to us listening to you and what you have to share and to share with us, and what is important to you, and or everything related to the overall topic, which is the employment crisis in Iraq. So if you've not signed up, please everyone feel invited to be signing up to our online conference. We are also excited to get in touch with you, meet you, and hear from you. So, and who wants to be in the final picture? I give you another few minutes to join with your camera if you have one, and then I tell you when to smile.
Mr. Felix, open our camera.
Oh, Mr. Felix, that's actually, I'm Mr. Felix today.
Okay. You
So sorry
you mute
then.
us. Yes.
I mute all of you. Oh, sorry. So then I will, so then while I'm unmuting you with your camera, then maybe someone can translate what I've
Fauzi,
said.
Professor
Yeah.
Fauzi.
Okay, thank you.
So I hope now more people can join with their camera now.
Can try to speak their names. Heba, Gazoan, Sarah, Rava, Yusuf, Yusu, Aya, Isan, Shasho, Emam, and the others I unfortunately cannot read. Ahmad Mohammed. Okay.
Okay. And
yeah, some are joining. Oh, great. Yeah.
الإمكان فتح الكاميرا لأخذ صورة جماعية.
Yeah, so I hope now I managed to open the camera for everyone. So so please everyone everyone smile. Thank you for thank you for coming today. Yeah, and Achille, if you could help me with making a screenshot.
I did a screenshot.
Hello, Dakhil.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for Professor Gon and everyone for the interesting presentation to do us.
Thank you so much for your kind words.
Mr. Hike, open your camera.
I think
we also had some problem with internet connection. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I took some screenshot, and I think some of you also took some screenshot. And
did you manage the screenshot or?
yes, I managed.
Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Professor Gruen. And
thank you.
Please, such a nice evening having with you. And I hope for all of you good night and pleasant dreams. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good night and pleasant dreams for you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to
Thank
all.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm Strikey.
Hello. Yeah, so there was global justice, so I lost connection. So
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So I'm wishing everyone a good night.
Do you remember me or not?
Yes, I know, Ahmad, I know you.
Thanks for you inviting to your lectures.
You're welcome. So I'm wishing everyone a good night now, and I'll end this meeting.
So what is the next lectures? What's the time?
The next lecture will be on the 19th of May.
19 after 3 days?
No, after 14 days.
Yeah, it's the after month.
Yeah. So, but we will invite you. You will get a notification.
If God will that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I miss you.
No, thank you. So I wish everyone a good night.
Have you a good day and a good night. Happy dreams. زينب تسمعيني؟ زينب. Can I speak English or not?